I'm making 6 pullouts for these cabinets. So I've got some Baltic birch lined up. I'm going to make 6 rips and we'll cut the drawer parts out of that. So just lift up one side onto the platform here, grab the other side. So now it's going to just pivot over. I don't really have to lift the whole sheet up like that. So that just saved me a lot of strain. Now I'm going to remove the factory edge, and it's better to keep that simple. So I'm not going to try to use any special table features for that. I've just got my combination square, and I'm just going to set an identical amount at each end, take off a little strip, so we have a nice clean surface, and then we'll set it on a table to get the even rips that I need. It's always embarrassing when the hose comes off in the middle of the cut. I'll just push this back, throw up the rip stops, and pull this back against them. And then I'm going to be all set once I move the vacuum. Start making 6 cuts at 100 millimeters. Okay, so I've got the fences set up a little bit closer to the front of the table just because the pieces I'm cutting are narrow and it saves me a little bit of reach. I've also got 2 lengths because the sides and the backs are different, 12 pieces of each. So I've set 2 flip stops, one at the shorter length, one at the longer length, and I'm ready to go. Now, I should mention you could do this same arrangement on the shortcut, even though this end of the shortcut is shorter than it is on the big bench, because we have the fence deck available here, which would help support any piece that overhangs the end. These first 2 pieces will be all shorts. The other 4 will have a mix of long and short. I'm going to start by just squaring up the ends on these 2. So I'm just going to push back this second piece and start doing one at a time here. I should not need to raise the rail because I've got material underneath it to support the weight of the saw. It's 8 out of 12 short pieces. We got 2 more short pieces to cut. So I might as well just do these, squaring on both of these at the same time. Get these last 2, and then switch the flip stop. All right. So now it's all longs from here in. Okay, so we got sides and fronts and backs all looking good. Next step is to work out the slots for the drawer bottoms and the notches for the undermount slides. Okay, I've got 6 drawers, which means 6 drawer backs, and I'm going to make the notches in the drawer backs for the undermount slides. So with the idea to save myself trouble in the future, I made a little template here that's going to help me create these notches. And I can use this in the future for any size drawer back, really, because it's only about where the notch happens. It doesn't really matter how big the piece is. So let's take a look at that, and I'll make these, and then we can move on. So it's very simple. I've just got this template here with a notch cut out, 3 curbs, and I'm going to do just like that. I will clamp the piece in here while I run the router with the pilot bit in it to copy that shape. I'm using a 1/4 inch spiral bit because I can get an 1/8 inch radius here, which is not too big to fit around the drawer slide. So let's get a fresh one. Here's this one. I'll just pop that in there. And I'll just come in from the bottom and mark that notch. Do the same thing on the other side. Doesn't matter if it's up or down. And now get the jigsaw out and do a rough cut on those. Just find a convenient spot to clamp this part in place. I'm just going to use the jigsaw to rough out the notches. There's one. And once I get this done, I might as well do the rest of them so I can do all the steps, all the parts in order. All right, let's get the rest of them. Now it's time to cut the slots in the drawer parts for the drawer bottoms, just because of what's available here and budgetary concerns. I'm going to use some scrap 5mm plywood, which is really more like 4.5, and put 2 thicknesses together. It comes out to about 9, but I figure with some finish on both sides, it'll be closer to 10. I got a 10mm router bit, and I will cut the slots on the router table. I might make 2 passes because I'll probably go a little more than half the thickness of this 12mm Baltic birch. So here are the drawer parts, and I want to assemble them with dominoes. I want to use the 5mm version of that. So I set up the cutter in the tool, and even with the shallowest depth setting, I realized that it's actually going to come through the wood, and I'd prefer that it does not. So I thought about this for a bit and got busy with the 3D printer, and I made a little special attachment to go on the domino that is going to create basically a 3mm offset. So it will not allow the cutter to go in so far. So this is just like a first pass at the idea, but looks like it's going to work. So let's rig that up and make some holes. Okay, so it just attaches with a couple of knobs in holes that are existing in the base. I am not the first person ever to make something that attaches to the domino, so just want to make that clear. But I don't know if anyone's done this. There are few new ideas in the world, but I'm doing it for myself for the first time. So there's my 3mm thickness, and at the plunge you can see it doesn't come through. So that is what I want, and now we can get to work. I've set up the bridge here on door and panel supports, so I can do several of these at once, just to keep it convenient. Look at that. Great success. Well, these random scraps will become the drawer bottoms because that's all I have. Well, I've cut these down and glued them together into the 6 drawer bottoms I'm going to need. I decided not to bore you with that process. So I'm just going to cut them to final dimensions now, and I'll just put the rear bracket back on here, which I'll just often take it off, take the pivoting portion off when I need the space or something, or when it might otherwise be in the way, rather than moving all the stuff that's mounted on the back of the table. A little bit easier to just take off the pivoting part and the rail without moving anything to do with the rail itself. So I'll just make 2 square sides before I concern myself with final dimensions. They are a bit rectangular. Well, I had this idea that I would set up 2 flip stops because there are 2 dimensions, and I could just go from one and then a little bit farther down to another, but their difference is only 6 millimeters. So there really isn't a way to arrange that. So it'll have to be an extra step. Okay, so there's a dry fit on one of these drawers, which is very satisfying because this process has taken place over a number of months, and I'm finally getting close to the end. So the next step is going to be 4 big doors for this cabinet, and then eventually we'll have something we can use. Thanks for watching.